It's one of the most memorable and thrilling opening sequences in movie history. Today on Art of the Scene, we take an in-depth look at the Boulder scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark. In 1977, George Lucas headed for Hawaii during the opening weekend of his film Star Wars. He invited his friend Steven Spielberg along, and when news came that Lucas's movie was a hit, talk turned to what Spielberg might tackle next. Spielberg wanted to direct a globe-trotting James Bond film, but because he wasn't British, the franchise's producers had turned him down. Lucas said he had something better, the story of a swashbuckling archaeology professor whose adventures were a throwback to the Republic serials of the 1930s. Better yet, the special effects would largely be practical, meaning Spielberg wouldn't be wrestling a giant robotic shark to perform properly on camera. Spielberg committed right there on the beach, and then they built a sandcastle for good luck. Seriously, I'm not shitting you. Back on the mainland, they brought in screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan to fully flesh out the world of Dr. Indiana Smith. First job, rename him. The three brainstormed and outlined the story, and while Spielberg went off to film 1941, Kasdan wrote the screenplay, and the result is a film that is a nod to the forebears of its genre without devolving into campy parody. Spielberg, on seeing the expansive script, was worried, but decided to make it a real good B-plus film. I decided not to shoot for a masterpiece, but to make a good movie that told George's story very well. I could have tried to give it a remarkable veneer that only I and this year's graduating class at USC Film School and Stanley Kubrick would have noticed. Or I could have just made the picture and substituted humor and invention for time-consuming technique. Which is stupid, because even slumming, Spielberg can make a movie that wins 4 Oscars and is nominated for 4 more. But his film before Raiders wasn't a hit. With the financial and critical failure of 1941, Spielberg knew he needed to prove himself, not as a great director, but as a fiscally responsible one.
I told George when I first accepted the project, I said, I'll do the movie, but I'm going to shoot it real fast.
Right.
We're not going to do 20 takes on a 14-inch dolly shot. And we're not going to spend time getting the girl's hair out of her eye every shot.
Like both Jaws and Close Encounters, 1941 had gone over budget and over schedule. But unlike the 2 previous films, it bombed. The studio was pressuring Lucas to find someone more reliable.
If we don't get this, we don't get the shot.
If we don't get the shot, we don't get the movie.
But Lucas was committed to his friend Spielberg, who resolved to come in under budget and under schedule. So he pre-visualized everything with miniatures, like he did here for the sequel Temple of Doom. The rest of the crew, recruited heavily from Star Wars, included cinematographer Douglas Slocum, composer John Williams, production designer Norman Reynolds, art director Les Dilley, visual effects supervisor Richard Edlund, hey, where have we heard that name before? And mechanical effects supervisor Kent West. All were instrumental in the now iconic opening scene that introduces the world to Dr. Jones. True to its roots in the serial cliffhanger, the film fades in on a jungle adventure already in progress. A man in a fedora passes into view, but his face is obscured by shadow. The first character the audience has a chance to connect with is a member of his entourage, played by Alfred Molina. He's nervous, clearly aware of the danger his leader is ignoring, and a total surrogate for the audience. Like all action sequences, it was filmed in pieces, none of which Ford later said were very difficult for him.
They thought through what was safe and what was not, both for themselves and for me. So it was just another day at the office for me.
One of the reasons this scene is so iconic is how it's constructed. It's a microcosm of the movie as a whole and showcases some of the best work of everyone involved. In the beginning, as Jones makes his way through the temple, the editor uses longer takes to build the suspense. We see our hero carefully navigate the temple, keeping his companion safe from harm. We learn he's capable as he successfully points out and navigates the traps. The bag of sand he scrapes together outside the cave is a small payoff for the audience and the ultimate payoff for showing that he's capable and prepared. Up until this point, the music has largely been a sparse accentuation to what's happening on screen. But just when we think we can breathe more easily, one small mistake changes the scene entirely. We see the capability of our hero is not in the preparation, but in making it up on the spot, and how that can get him into trouble. At this point, the editor is cutting much more frequently. Quick takes highlight the danger as suspense turns to action.
Give him the whip. Throw me the idol.
The music is heightened, taking on a life of its own, and all the traps we've seen him dodge previously are now twice as deadly with little time to prepare.
Adiós, señor.
The sequence amps into a frenetic scramble as Indiana Jones races to escape the booby-trapped temple. Without Indiana's experience, the backstabbing Satipo doesn't make it. And then finally, the big trap, which was there right in front of our eyes as we entered the temple. The giant boulder. The boulder is an idea that was all George Lucas, in that he saw it in a Scrooge McDuck comic and thought it was neat. The comic was called The Seven Cities of Cibola by Carl Barks. In it, Donald, his nephews, and the Beagle Boys find an exquisite idol in an underground cave. Wait, that idol seems a little familiar too. But the similarities don't stop there. When the Beagle Boys move the idol, the temple begins to break apart and, hello, big rock! For the film, the art director built the enormous boulder out of fiberglass, and while it wasn't as heavy as a real boulder of that size, it did weigh somewhere between 300 and 800 pounds depending on who you talk to. More than enough to do serious damage if things went awry. It had to be massive, but be able to be controlled for safety and reset for multiple takes. In the end, Spielberg was so impressed with the finished prop that he gave it more screen time.
That was great, but my heart stopped.
More screen time meant sound design became even more important. Ben Burtt, who had designed sound for Star Wars and would go on to give Wall-E his trademark charm, needed something good and heavy. Something heavy, man. He doesn't talk like that. The rolling boulder gave him some difficulty in sound design. He had tried rolling different sized rocks down the hills, but was unhappy with the results. One day he was coming out of the hills and he heard the perfect sound. He immediately grabbed his gear and recorded it. Now go back and listen to the boulder roll one more time. Would you have guessed it was the tires of his Honda Civic rolling and crunching down the rocks? Because that's exactly what it is. It's a Honda Civic on rocks, guys. And now that you've heard it, you can't unhear it. It gave the boulder the perfect amount of dangerous heft to chase down Harrison Ford. While Ford raced from the boulder plenty of times himself, ultimately stumbling during one take, which is in the final cut. For the shots that were too dangerous for a movie star, two expert stuntmen also wore the fedora. Martin Grace running from the boulder inside the studio, and then halfway across the world, Vic Armstrong diving headfirst into the jungle. Now that's how you make an iconic scene, diving headfirst into a jungle. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the art of the scene on Raiders of the Lost Ark. Obviously, that's one of our favorite movies here at Cinefix. Subscribe to the channel for more Cinefix. Let us know in the comments below what some of your favorite iconic scenes are and some that you think would be great to see on the show. We're always listening to you. We love you. We'll see you next time.